and welcome back to Masters of Modern. I am your host, Alexander Kessler, here with my co-host, Benjamin Bateman.
What's up, guys? I've got an AirPod. I've started to get so used to using my AirPod, because I lost the second one, which sucks, that I walk around with it now, like a real D-bag with a Bluetooth in my ear, which I always used to think about people who did that as like, come on, just take the Bluetooth out. Like, you don't need to walk around with it, but it's so convenient to just keep walking around with it in your ear. Why would you take it out, you know?
You need the second one. You just need to get a second one.
I'm so sad I lost it.
I know. There's probably a new one coming out next week, right? Isn't the Apple thing going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
So for those jumping in, we are probably talking about two things today. Now it's possible that the review section is kind of pulled out and is either the full episode or maybe that's the hot take for next week. And then we're also going to be talking about secret layers. There's been a lot going on, as I'm sure the internet has talked about, but I kind of want to go through. I've been meaning to actually do an episode, or we've been meaning to do an episode on secret layers, just like, in general, are they good or bad? And then obviously the Walking Dead exclusive licensed version of Secret Lair was announced, and we've seen a few cards at this point. And yeah, so we're super hyped to talk about Magic the Gathering. And I think we're going to start with the set review. Let's get that out of the way. Before we get started for both, I would like to pinkies up to all of our patrons. If you go
Nobles of House Modern, Andrew Kelso, big time salute to you, my friend. Thank you for being a member of the Noble House.
If you go check out our Patreon, it's awesome. We have a bunch of people there. One of the cool things that we do now is before every episode, we kind of record like a 15-minute to 10-minute fireside chat where we talk exclusively to patrons. That only gets there. It's on the raw feed at the beginning of the episode. Plus, you get the whole episode unedited. You get all the swearing. You get like weird mistakes we might make. You get the fact that, like, especially with set reviews, sometimes we'll like do a deep dive on cards like Akum Warrior and like, is a 4/5 for 6 that can be a land worth playing? And it's not. But on the raw feed, you could get stuff like that for all the other cards that we're going to talk about that you're going to miss out on. And so definitely check that out. And also just, you have exclusive access to the Discord. You get every Monday, we have a little chat with everybody on what, like we ask everyone questions of what we should be talking about that week or anything that they'd like us to discuss. And it's just like a cool place to be. And we really appreciate it. It's how we make this podcast happen. It's how we get everyone the content that we make every week. And it helps Marshall do all the things that Marshall does, which is magic as far as I'm concerned, because I honestly don't know how podcasts work. And from that, I mean, like,
we're very lucky. We're very lucky to have, a genuinely awesome producer who does a great job. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Marshall, go check out this last Monday. We did one of our Commander live streams that we do every single Monday now. It's actually at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's every week. We're doing sometimes CEDH, we're doing sometimes just competitive casual, which I've been getting into. Alex has actually convinced me to start building decks, and I've been enjoying myself. And we played with the full MMcast crew. So Michael and Marshall, all brand new Zendikar commanders, by the way. I Anno on the new Rogue commander, which is super dope. And you played a giant snow crab. So
yeah, I'm hoping Marshall has put all of the cards that we played with in that game around our heads this whole time, and then also. You build a sweet mill deck in Commander, and it worked. We're not going to say how and who, but there's some murders that happened, and definitely check that out. The videos are always on YouTube that same day, so you should take a look at. And now let's. I wanted to mill
out 300 cards so bad. I so badly wanted to kill all of you guys with milling you, but it's really hard to mill out 100 card deck, let alone 3 of them. It's unless you're going to combo out. If you're going to try to manually do it, it's like, come on, that's like impossible.
You got pretty close. I mean, you also gave Michael a lot of cards in his graveyard that he used with all of his clerics and reanimation. But we don't want to spoil too much of what happened, so definitely check the video out. Link is below. It's on the YouTube channel. All right, first card in red. Card that's good and also good with landfall is Cleansing Wildfire. 1 red sorcery, destroy target land. Its controller may... Oh, God. I've clicked on buttons. Oh, no. So many buttons. Going to start this card
Its controller
over.
may search their library for a basic land card and put it into play. I can't remember if it's tapped or untapped. You draw a card. It's like
tapped.
It's kind of in some ways... It's tapped. It's like kind of a red Spreading Seas in some ways, but a little bit better because it gets rid of a land as opposed to just immobilizing it.
Yeah.
Better or worse. But it's a similar kind of card. But it's also cool because I don't think you can target your own land with this, right? It's not just target opponent.
Yeah. So there's a few cool things. One, yes, it's a good land hate card in a kind of the same vein as Ghost Quarter, right? Like it feels like Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin, both really powerful cards, where you can use this card to get rid of something where Field of Ruin replaces itself and puts a land into play. Ghost Quarter just costs you a land, but it's free. This one costs 2 mana, but then draws you a card, so it cantrips, and your lands stay untouched, right? They're still hanging out, all fun and having a good time. And as you said, this can actually be it's a cool mana fixer in red, right? Like this is something that red really hasn't had before, and this allows you to just like if you need another color, if you're playing like red green and you need a green source and you have this, you can blow up one of your mountains to go get a forest, and in the meantime draw a card, cantripping, fixing your mana, and then on top of that, obviously landfall. When you are playing this with a card like a Coom Hellhound, you're able to just give it that much more +2/+2 triggers.
Yeah, this card is basically, I can guarantee this card will be a forever player in lots of formats. In the same way you can kind of guarantee that like Manamorphose was going to be a card that was a forever player in a lot of formats. It's such a utilitarian card that does so many things for both your side and their side. There are so many clever uses of this card, especially like when it comes to cost reducers. It has colorless in the cost as opposed to being double colored. So if you play this for one, it's like, okay, blow up my own land, put other land into play, maybe get value, draw a card, fill graveyard. There's just a lot with this card. I don't think it's overpowered. I just think it's an excellent card. I'm really happy about this card existing. It like opens up a lot of really, really cool stuff. And it's exactly the kind of Magic card that I like when they design. So bravo.
Plus it looks amazing in foil. I bought a box. I opened the box. I'm doing one of those EDH leagues, and this was in my pool, and it's really.
Can I like get in? Can I like get in on the league? How do I do that?
You can, if you're interested. Yeah, I'll ask the organizers, and we can be more official about it. I'll let them know. You gotta buy.
Please, I would love to be able to talk about it. I will do it. I will gladly do it. I'll support my LGS.
I'll tell them as soon as this podcast is done. They'll be hyped. All right, next card that we're going to be talking about is Kargan Intimidator. 1 and a red, a human warrior 3/1. Cowards can't block warriors. Choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn, and target warrior gains trample until end of turn. So something that this card does that is interesting is it plays. So there's this giant card, and it's like words I'm never going to say.
Boldweir Intimidator. Is that what you're thinking of from People Play, the old card?
Yeah. And it basically states cowards can't block warriors, and it has the ability to make creatures into cowards and creatures into warriors. And I believe itself is a warrior. Yeah. And it's like a 5/5 giant for 6 and or even more than that. The card's right here. I'm doing this off the top of my head. This is kind of a reference to that. It's playing in the warrior space. I think partially because like when Warrior Tribal is happening, that's maybe one of the most famous Warrior Tribal cards ever printed. And as far as rates go, I mean, this in some ways is a 2 mana 3/1 that has like a decent evasion ability, plus can become a 4/2 and can gain trample. Like, does a lot. I think it's just a little too mana hungry and expensive, but it's like maybe there on earlier formats, maybe in kind of the historic world or standard world, if standard becomes powered down a little bit from where it's at. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Boldweir Intimidator is a 7-drop that has like very expensive abilities. So this is a flavorful throwback to a card from Feature Site, which is cool because that's like now a set that people like have a lot of love for. This card's great in the same way. Say what?
I coughed saying your name, saying that because you specifically have a lot of love
I think
for
a lot of people.
Yeah,
I think like a lot of people love that set. It's a weird set, but it's definitely, this is like a throwback to that. I think a 2 mana 3/1 in aggressive colors is something that they're pretty comfortable printing now. You can see even like in the 2 mana 3/1 Changeling that they printed in Modern Horizons, it's there. You can do plenty with that space. Like it doesn't really matter what it does unless it specifically is a 2 mana 3/1 that draws you a card or something like that when it comes into play. Like they don't want to give you too direct of a benefit, but in general, 2 power 3/1 is like two mana 3/1 is like a pretty easy space. So I like this card. I think this card is totally powerful. It's not too powerful. It's great for standard. It won't really see play unless there's a devoted warrior deck that like is bonkers.
Or party, right? Like this card can do stuff in party decks. Like it's a decent on its own warrior that then can turn on party if you needed to. If that's ever
I mean so like you have the Orzhov warriors from Khan's block that like are really nice plays with this because now you have like Lord and it's a 3/1, so it can pump itself, but also it's like a 4/2 if you play that Lord the next turn. But all those are things that are just kind of slightly worse, less permanent versions of like what a humans deck is doing or a merfolk deck is doing. And it's requiring you to play 3 colors. So that's why I do think that like this is really cool and I like it and I'm all about designing around it, but it's just a little less than I think what I would want to expect big things out of it. But I think the card is cool. It's pretty self-contained. It does a lot on its own, which is great. You don't need a tribal deck for this card to be cool. It can make itself unblockable and it can also make itself a 4/2. So
right. Next card is Layline Tyrant. 2 red, 4/4 flying. You don't lose. It's a dragon. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. When Layline Tyrant dies, you may pay any amount of red. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target. This might be my favorite card in the set.
Name the first card that comes to mind when you see this card.
Like a combo card? It's this one.
Yes, it is Braid of Fire. Obviously, it's Braid of Fire. Like it's like I feel like this card was literally designed like, how sick can we make Braid of Fire? Like that. Like I look at this card and I just go, holy smokes!
I immediately bought a second playset when this card was previewed. I would have had all 4, but I've already put 2 of them into other decks, waiting for me to buy my Layline Tyrants to put those in those decks. This card is so sweet. Like it has the Omnath ability, right? Like so, like Omnath from original Zendikar didn't let green mana to expire. This doesn't let red mana to expire. But this has this ticking time bomb attached to it that like does something really cool with the red mana, where if he dies, you can just spend all of that to just dome someone to the face. And people were kind of complaining about the artwork. Like it's like a weird looking dinosaur dragon. I like love it. It reminds me of like the kaiju from Pacific Rim. It like distinctly looks like the like monsters from that movie, which I really love. And I can kind of just like imagine the like spine creaking above people like in the ley line, like just like you, and then just like comes down and eats you. I'm just like all about this card. It's sweet. Also a good rate. Flying.
I think this card is. That's what I was going to say, right? Like you talk about power creep and all that kind of stuff and how things are pushed to sort of feel a certain way. And to me, this card is just like, it's a 4/4 flying for 4 in red, which is already like an insane dragon rate. Compare this to Shivan Dragon. I mean, come on, like it's so much better. But the inevitability on this card is exactly the kind of thing I like. When you compare this ability to the kind of stuff I talk about with like Uro and why I hate Uro so much, I don't mind you have a great threat that kills me if I get rid of it. You're in mono red. Like you have to play this in conjunction with lots of other things and generate lots of red mana specifically, similar to like a Koth, for this card to be oppressive. And it's also just trying to kill me. It's not drawing you cards. It's not gaining you life. It's like, and it costs 4. You can't cheat it into play. So like everything about this card is just a powerful red card that I think is dope. And its neck looks like a rack of ribs. So makes me hungry. You
can't. I mean, I feel like I could sneak attack this with a bunch of untapped red mana and just like pay all that red mana into it to just like 4 you to the face, let it die, 9 you to the, I'm hyped. Yeah. Next card. And this is a card that's really interesting to me because like in previous standard seasons, this would be the card that everyone was talking about. And it's just like, I haven't seen a blip on the radar. And it's just kind of a statement of how far power has creeped. In Magmatic Channeler, 1 in a red human wizard, 1/3. As long as there are 4 or more instants and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it gets +3/+1. So it can be a 2 mana 4/4. You can tap it to discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play this card this turn. So not only is it a 2 mana 4/4 within to get that to 4/4 is not that hard. Getting 4 instants and or sorceries into your graveyard is not that big of a challenge. That then, if you're not getting it as a 4/4, if you're just playing it as a 1/3, or even late game if the 4/4ness is outclassed, you can tap it for card advantage, or at least like very strong card filtering looting. And I think like that's really good. I don't know why people aren't more hyped.
I think there'll be a swing back on the card. I think people will get excited about it a little more down the line. It's really good. I mean, I think what you said is totally correct. If you compare this to like most of the blue-red sort of play lots of spells cards that have been printed, this card's actually a lot better than most of them, right? If you compare this to like Phoenix or like Sprite Dragon or like any card that kind of fits into that mold, I really think it's a 1/3 to begin with. So like it blocks really well anyway. It's not like a 1/1, which is so easy to kill. And then I don't know. I think the card's really good.
Yeah.
I just think I think long term people will come around on it. There's just a lot going on, and there hasn't been a format yet where there's like a deck built around taking advantage of this card yet.
It's also a human. It's also a wizard, right? Like there's like definitive advantage with what wizards want to be doing in wizard tribal decks, and what this card does. It draws you. It doesn't draw you cards from a draw card trigger, but it draws you cards. And like. It's good late game. It's good early game. Whenever you draw it, it's good because it's like I guess its worst position is if they play a Tarmogoyf on turn 2 and able to maybe fill it up faster than you're able to get instants and sorceries. But like, it's still drawing you cards. I don't know. Yeah, I really like this card. I would be more hyped on it than I think people are.
I think also like the thing about this card that's really dope, and you mentioned just in Wizards Tribal, like those mono red decks in Historic are already good. Those blue red decks in Modern are already quite good. This card does a lot for those decks. Like being able to exile a Wizard's Lightning end of turn when you exile both of them and then like just like lightning bolt them because you have this is really powerful. And then it puts it in your graveyard. So if you're playing the blue version, now you have like another kind of bolt snap bolt situation. Like pretty good. Yep. I think, you know, a 2-mana 1/3 that, I mean,
it also
Confidant's
gets you,
a 2/1 and you lose life.
Right. And like this, like puts 2 cards into your graveyard. If you, when you exile something, if you discard a sorcery and you exile a sorcery and or instant and are able to cast it, this says now put 2 instants and sorceries in your graveyard. You need to do that twice. And you're drawing cards while you're doing, or at least you're filtering to better cards as you're doing this to be able to just dome someone. And that card you discard on the other end can be Phoenix, right? Like this could discard Arclight Phoenix, or this can discard an Historic any number of the Jumpstart, the Is It mechanic cards, right? You can put any of those in the graveyard when you're kind of, or an Escape card, or right, like any of the different flashback variants that Wizards is printing. You can put in the graveyard with this, get it back, and you're getting to draw a card off of it. I'm really hyped on it. Next card.
I will build around this card at some point, guaranteed, 100%.
And this is a card that I have already bought 4 of and have homes for. Nahiri's Lithoforming, X red sorcery, sacrifice X lands. For each land sacrificed this way, draw a card. You may play X additional lands this turn. Lands you control enter the battlefield tapped this turn. This card's really sweet. It like draws a lot of cards in red. I'm excited for it in decks that are playing with Loam or Scape Shift, specifically in Commander, right? I have like multiple red decks that are looking for this type of sacrifice land effects. Most famously is probably Borborygmos, which like is desperate for getting a bunch of lands in your graveyard that then can translate it to more lands in play so that you can pick those lands up from your graveyard and throw them at people with Borborygmos. Field of the Dead decks. Yeah, there's like a lot of cool stuff you can do with this.
Yeah, I think so you sacrifice a bunch of lands, you draw all these cards, and you can play them. So like the first thing that comes to mind for me is like Crucible and that kind of a deck, Excavator, where you can play from your graveyard because you just cast this, you draw a bunch of cards. The you don't have to pay the cost, right, of how many lands you sacrifice, or you do. It's red X.
It's red X, yes.
So you have to pay the mana and sack the lands. Okay, so you can't cheat. You can't just like for 2 mana sack 5 lands, then like Crucible play 5 lands. You have to actually pay for the 5, then play them all tapped. So it's totally good, and it has like real practical application in those types of decks. But I think again, it's like if you're not somebody who's excited about like big mana sacrifice land recursive loop type of strategies, which like I'm generally not, it's a little one-dimensional. It is cool that you can like for 3 sack a land, play a land, draw a card in red, I guess. It's nice that it has like the functionality of sacrificing.
So would you play this in your Jund Lands deck?
In Highlander, you mean?
In Highlander.
Probably, but like I play low land counts anyway. So I think about, I don't know. Okay, so let's just pretend I was going to sack 4 lands. Let's say I had 7 in play. I wanted to make sure that like I didn't just like lose. So I played like half. I sacked 4 lands. I paid 6 for this card. Let's say of those 4 cards that I drew 1 land, right? So I play it. Now instead of 7 lands, I've got, 4 lands, and I have some extra cards in hand. What?
You draw 4 cards, right? Like you're
thing, yeah. So of the cards I draw, but like of the 4 I draw, like only 1's a land. Presumably, all my lands are in play at this point because I have like 6, lands in play or whatever, 7. So I'm playing 1 every turn. It's like kind of the situation where I think about being land flooded, and I'm like, if I'm totally mana flooded, this card's great. But if I'm just hitting my land drops and I get to like 5 or 6 and I get a little unlucky on the draw, this is crippling. What if I sack all my lands? Like, this is like pretty crippling. I feel like I like the card, but I don't feel like it has practical application in most decks. It's in very particular kinds of decks. Otherwise, the gamble is kind of intense. I could be wrong, though.
Okay. For me, I feel like in the situation you described, you say you play low land counts. Most of your spells aren't going to be more than 2 to 4 mana, so this lets you get rid of all those extra lands you don't need, plus puts those lands into your graveyard to make any land-based creatures that you want to be big because there are lands in the graveyard bigger. But I get where you're coming from. Next card is Relic Robber. 2 red, 2/2, haste. When Relic Robber deals combat damage to a player, that player creates a 0/1 colorless Goblin Construct artifact creature token. With this creature can't block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, this creature deals 1 damage to you. It's a Goblin Rogue. Cool from a flavor perspective is, I believe, if you know the legendary creature Tuk Tuk from original Zendikar or Worldwake, I believe. Yes. This is his head that is the token you're receiving. So Tuk Tuk died and became a Goblin Construct, and now the Relic Robber has stolen this Goblin head that is now going to curse people that he gives it to. And I've played this in Limited. I've played this. I'm super stoked to have this in Commander, where like it's just going to like create these 0/1 tokens people are going to have to deal with. It's like really cute. I really like this card. I don't think it's like constructed tournament player viable good, but I think it's like, I love cards like this. This card's really, really fun.
It's like if we only needed anything to make Dockside Extortionist better, it's like it makes it that much better. No, I think this card's totally cool. I came across it looking in my rogues search, just like what rogues were printed that were good, and it costs 3, which is a problem. If it costs 2, different story. It costs 3, which makes it a little bit less notable. I mean, there's some cool stuff with them getting, it's an artifact creature they get, right?
Yes, and creates a 0/1 colorless Goblin Construct artifact creature token.
Yeah, so there's like cool Hunted Handsome type of applications. I think that's interesting, or like, but unfortunately, like the value of them getting that emblem effectively, or something similar to it is not worth what you're paying for the creature. So I think it's a fun creature. I'm actually really excited to see somebody come up with a cool way to use it, but it doesn't get me excited, right? Like not in the same way that Daryl from The Walking Dead Magic card gets me excited. Would you say 3 mana target creature gets an emblem, they take a damage once a turn for the rest of the game, do 2 damage to them, is worth the card? Would you play that card? You're saying if it wasn't a fragile creature that had to deal combat damage? Yeah. Like it's just like 2 damage target player, they get an emblem that they take 1 damage every turn moving forward. Yeah, it's way better because it's A, repeatable in the sense that it's a spell. B, does not have to get through. C, it's not like just killable when you attack with it. Like there are so many situations where you just get shocked in like standard or historic on a 3 mana investment, nothing happens. They have to have the correct counterspell and deem this like problematic enough for you. Sure. So I think it's not great, but it's definitely better. Yeah, it's for sure better. Yeah.
Next card we're going to talk about, and it's a little bit, not necessarily to talk about the card because it's a 4 mana 3/3 whatever for an effect that normally is only good even and barely good on 2 drops, as much as Ben wished this wasn't true. Rockslide Sorcerer, 3 and a red, human wizard 3/3. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, Rockslide Sorcerer deals 1 damage to any target. The thing that I want to point out is I really like the instant sorcery wizard grouping, and I actually have like a small shot call prediction. I'm going to predict that on Strixhaven, which is going to be the wizard themed Wizard University plane that we're going to in the end of the not the end of the year, in April, May, that there will be a historic / party like batching mechanic that batches instant spells and wizards, like to get like a magic. Maybe calling it something like magic. I don't think it'll call magic, but something in that frame.
Like a more identifiable name that groups those 3 together. Right. It's a cool idea. I mean, I've talked about pretty openly at this point that I think like the inclusion of wizard as a more relevant creature type is awesome. I think it is so flavorful for the game of Magic the Gathering, and like speaking generally, if you're into wizards, you're into blue, and speaking generally, if you're into blue, you're probably into instants and sorceries, and you want things that are cheaper, that have cool interaction. This card is too expensive for what it's doing. I don't even think it's worth too much talking about the individual features of the card, because just from a time perspective. But yes, it was more the batching side of it. It's nice that it's to any target, right? Like that's nice, but yeah, like Gutter Snipe is worse, but a better card anyway. Like it's less interesting, but it's more powerful. So
Rolling Vortex, 1 red enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Rolling Vortex deals 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, Rolling Vortex deals 5 damage to that player. Your opponents, can't gain life this turn. So it's what's the Molten Vortex? All right, Molten Vortex?
Sulfuric Vortex.
Sulfuric Vortex. This is kind of the card we were just describing, actually, where it's 2 mana. Each player takes 1 damage each turn. This has the hate card effect where for 1 red mana you can stop their life gain, which Burn desperately can use, right? It's like almost a great sideboard tech in Burn decks. And then has the weird hate mechanic that does help on stopping people from not casting spells.
Or casting free spells.
Yeah. So your Force
they
of
take
Will
5 whenever they when they cast a free spell, they take 5. Do they sacrifice this permanent? Okay, so it's a turns or no.
No. It's just whenever a player casts a free spell, they take 5. That doesn't go away. They just take 5 damage. So like every Force of Will.
So I read this card in a few. Yeah. I was gonna say I read this card in a few different ways. The first one is that I think in mono red commander decks, this card is rock solid. I think like it's especially like I would say that in mono red CEDH decks, this card is like insanely solid because the number of free blue counter spells and free blue spells in general that are going to be played in those decks is like definitely worth getting the 5 mana trigger. And also each player taking 1 damage every turn means that like you just have a lot of things that are worthwhile. Like there's lots of like things that trigger when your opponents have been dealt damage, like Spectacle, all kinds of stuff that, you can definitely get a lot of value out of. And it only costs 2. I think in general, this card is more interesting than Sulfuric Vortex. In 1v1 standard, it's not going to be that good. Like there aren't free spells in standard, even in historic. It's fine, but like probably as a sideboard card in mono red, that's like where this shines the most. I just see it in those formats that they play like 19, like all those commander free spells, right? You can play literally like any of them. Force of Will, Force of Negation, all the forces. Gosh, all these cards that people do play in those decks. I think this is like good for that reason.
Yeah, I think standard is the place where this is worse. Like the older the format, the better it gets. And not to mention like Legacy and Vintage, where like this does a lot of work there. Like this in Vintage shuts out Moxes, right? Like 0 mana.
That's true.
Like every Mox takes 5 damage. So like, and even in like CEDH, this card is good for the same reason, right? Where it's like the
Mox Diamond, Mox Amber, Mana Crypt, all the blue spells.
Opal.
Like, yeah, dude, this is Commander. This is like savage. This is actually really, really powerful.
Right. And like 5 damage is a lot less in Commander, but I think that's one of the reasons it's 5 and not 2, where like, and I think this is like a really cool card there.
I would even say actually, by the way, like, and I know this is not like a big thing, but like, think about like decks like Cheerios in Modern, like any deck that's trying to take advantage of lots and lots of cheap spells, cheap to free, where they're getting cost reducers to be able to play things for free. This just ends the day, right? 5 damage per Cheerios, you're over. This card single-handedly wins the game.
Yep.
It can't win.
For sure. Wayward Guide Beast, 1 red, 2/2, trample haste beast. Whenever Wayward Guide Beast deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Goblin Guide 2.0, except you return the land to your hand. But, as we've discussed in previous episodes when we went over the flip cards, returning a land to your hand maybe is actually a benefit in some of these cards. Obviously, it reminds me a lot of a card that you love, Scythe Tiger, in the sense that it like keeps you down on lands, and maybe can take advantage of some ETB lands a little bit better than others. So stuff like Mystic Sanctuary comes to mind as like a way to bounce those back to your hand, or even like the old Zendikar spell lands, the one that gives protection to creatures, Sajiri Step or Bajuku Bog. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think this card is pretty cool. I think it's the trample aspect is important because it means that having an aggressive creature early, if you have any kind of effect to like augment the power, whether it's like a giant growth or like in historic right now, they're playing it with like Infuriate. That's pretty common. You can get a lot of damage out of it. Infuriate does basically just become Lightning Bolt in a lot of cases. And so I think that's all really good. I do think that like it's exactly at the power level of being able to function competitively on 1 to 2 lands, which In a format like Modern, that's not good enough. If you are doing that, you will lose. Legacy, you can do it in certain decks. Standard, probably not. Like, you probably just get beaten. They're playing better cards than you. So I think it's a pretty interesting space. The landfall aspect of it is the thing that is the most, intriguing. And I think like with something like an exploration, this is like where it gets like really fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting because people really want to compare it to Goblin Guide, and I think in like Standard and other places it might fill that role. And we already talked about the Loam line, the Step Links style landfall, all 1-drops decks, and this could be a feature in those because all of the creatures and all the cards in that deck is a 1-drop. So who cares if you have more than 2 lands in play? But I also think like in more Commander and those kind of strategies, having this kind of a cool repeatable return a land to your hand effect could be worthwhile. Next card is Adventure Waits. 1 and a green sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, draw a card. This is green. It's a green. We're in the green color. We're in the green pie, aka the best color now, depending on who you ask.
Yep.
This card is interesting because it's like taking the because it's 2 mana, it's almost the anticipate slot, but it digs deeper and replaces itself if it whiffs, which I think is like a weird. They really want green to have this effect for some reason, I guess is what's interesting to me.
It's like the poor man's Once Upon a Time in some ways, but like you can't cast it for free, so it's like way worse. It's kind of like the fair Once Upon a Time in some ways, right? Like
yeah, right. Except it never whiffs, right? It's always the fail rate is actively 0.
That's what I mean. It's like, so once upon a time you play for free, It can whiff. It's possible. This card cannot whiff, which is why it's not as good, but it's a more fair design. Again, this is very similar to me as the red Destroy Land, Search for a Land card. It's really cool. It's a great design. It's like perfectly costed. I'm glad it doesn't cost 1 green. It does something like digs 3 instead, for instance. I think it costing 2 and digging 5 is great. It means that in general, when you play this card, it'll feel good. And if it feels bad, like it just cycled, which is like worst case scenario. And I'm fine with that.
So now that I'm going to pause here and we're going to use it to do a little bit of shout out because we're, in between secs. This is an opportunity, Ben, where we can say, you know what, next week we're going to do green. And then we're going to do it like a larger subject matter. And then the following week we'll do gold, artifacts, and lands. And then we'll be done. Though this is now extending for weeks. Or we can barrel through and get all of these done. And this episode can just be a long one that's more themed around the review. I would even actually say to Ben or Marshall, please leave this into the podcast. I'd love to actually hear for future set reviews what our listeners would like. And if they can comment below in the video or just tweet at us. I'm at Kess Wiley, at the MMcast is the podcast, on like how we do these review episodes. Because we're now doing more format content, these have taken longer, and already we were long-winded about these set reviews. So we would love to hear if you guys like these. This is what we've done is a kind of attached subject matters to each of them. This time it's been about mechanics. Today we've done red so far and might talk about Secret Lair or just barrel through all these and see if we can do Secret Lair if we have time. Ben, what are your thoughts?
I think we're a little long-winded, but I know we can barrel through. I'll keep my comments to 10 seconds unless it's like an actual card I think is awesome. Okay. And I think we should just barrel through tonight. I'm in no rush. Sometimes I am. Tonight I've got nothing afterwards I have to do. So
cool. All right.
You tell me.
I'm down to do the barrel through and then we can figure out what to do about Secret Lairs. And maybe that's a thing that we record later as like a live hot take or we just do it tonight and we just barrel through like champions.
Let's just do the thing. Yeah.
If we barrel through, listeners, even if we don't barrel through do these things, but if we do, please check out the Patreon. There's like a bunch of exclusive content there that gets posted there now every week during the episode. It's like its own version of the show. Also, please subscribe. Every set Monday, 7:30 p.m. PSD. We do live Commander streams. last week we did the full playset. We had me, Marshall, Ben, and Michael. We did all of the new commanders, all from Zendikar Rising. Ben's brewed now like 6 commander decks at this point.
You must be so proud at this point. I feel like you're watching a child grow is what you must feel like. I feel like every week I show up, I've done the work, I've like printed out the cards, I've like, thought about it. I am developing as a commander player.
My next plan within the commander world for you is to get you more into the brewing aspect of it. I think that's a part of the just command. And actually one of the reasons I'm excited about this thing I'm going to talk about in a second is about this. But I think you love coming up with new decks and new strategy and being kind of hipster. And Commander allows that more readily than almost any format in Magic. So I think it'll be good for you. Now, speaking of which, I did just get permission. You are officially invited to this box league set. So if you check your Discord, we've invited you. This is Tappy Toeclaws, friend of the podcast, regular guest on our streams and other content that we make, and all around awesome internet velociraptor dinosaur person scientist.
Is there any restriction again? Remind me on what box I can buy.
Yes,
can I buy?
So the way it works is everyone has bought a standard legal box. So you can't buy, you can't, it has to be a draftable box and it has to be standard legal. So you can't buy masters. I have like ultimate master boxes. I couldn't use unstable. And you build a commander deck out of that. You obviously want to strategize and make sure you pick a set that like has legendary creatures in it, right? Like there are sets that don't, so don't pick like M11 because if you don't open one, there's like no way to figure out how to fix that. And so you build a commander that you have to build a set that no one else in the league has chosen. So there's like a list in the Discord of sets that people have built. And then you open a box and you just get to build a commander deck out of it. I think BDM was one of the people responsible for coming out with this with Sheldon and a bunch of kind of the CAG, and BDM mentioned it on our stream. And after the first game in the league, you then get to pick 6 packs from any other set and open them and then add them to your deck. And so every game,
any set, including Eternal, I can buy Ultimate, whatever I want.
No, and once again, standard. I think maybe it's draftable regular products, so like Battle Bond and Conspiracy might be allowed, but don't quote me on that, and we might have to confirm. But for sure, yeah, I think because Mystery Boosties are out, so yeah, it's standard legal set, but you can pick Time Spiral. You can pick. Like you can go to like any set. You just have to buy the packs, right? That's on you.
Old sets, but it's all one set though. I can't pick like 6 different sets.
Well, every week you get a new 6 packs.
I just mean I have a bunch of Chaos Booster packs that I own at this point that I bought at various events.
In fact, I'm using some of them because there's some that we have like multiples of that I also own. So I have like a bunch of Shadows of Innistrad that I'm like almost definitely going to open up for my second one. I opened Zendikar Rising. I'm using Tazri. Mostly because it's 5 colors and I get to play every rare in the set. I just get all 5 colors, which is dope. I don't even know.
It's like dope. Yeah. That's like a really good open. Let me ask you this. In our league that I'm going to join, has Dominaria been picked yet?
Yes. That was Tappy's snap pick. I believe she got Muldrotha is who she was able to pull.
Really good.
She's hoping for a Tatiova, but that's like the better one, right? That's the better Tatiova. So she's really hyped. There's a few things. I know Cons, I think, has been taken. One of the M sets, like M21 or M19 has been taken. Whatever the one that the green, black, white legends are in, the enemy colored last year, M20.
If Time Spiral hasn't been taken, maybe I'll just spend like $400 or $700, whatever the hell it costs, because all of those sweet legends like Mishra and Ithai Hurricanist and like all the ones that are like those like not time shifted, but like the ancestors.
You can put like Safi, Eric's daughter, or whatever. Yeah, like that is available. You'd have to pay for that set, but that's up to you.
Expensive.
Unless people want to donate somehow to you live stream. If people go to your live stream and sub to a level that you'd be able to buy it.
Yeah, I'd figure it out. But it sounds really sweet, like really fun. So, all right, cool. So I'm all into that. I will join for sure. Thank you, Tappy, for allowing me to join. I'm gonna wreck all of you. I can't wait.
Yep, I'm excited. I already the coolest card I opened actually was probably I got a foil full art green white flipland, and it's like really
was that in a regular pack, or was that like your box topper?
Regular pack. My box topper was the box topper is guaranteed. It's the black white legend that Michael played with last week. And on the
wow. So you could just in a pack, you can just accidentally get a full art foil land like that.
Yeah, I got that. I also got what are some other cool looking cards? I got the full art Valakut Exploration.
Oh, sick. Yeah, that card's really good.
Got a Nissa.
Nice.
I really want a Jund. I did get a Shara, who, speaking of which, is the next card we're going to talk about. Segue, Ashaya Soul of the Wild, 3 green, legendary creature elemental. Ashaya Soul of the Wild's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. XX. Welcome to probably every judge on the planet's least favorite card, in the sense that just how do rules work? This goes infinite with a few things, because if you have landfall make a token, it's non-token, so it's non-token creature, so it's not as bad. But you can do stuff with Bloodghast and a sack outlet to have it return, or if you have 2 Bloodghasts, you can kind of loop them to mill out your opponent, which I think is a cool thing. Hopefully that works, right? You get 1 Bloodghast back. That triggers the other one.
It triggers the other Bloodghast. You
sack it. It goes, So if you have 2 Bloodcasts and a Shaya and a sack outlet, I would recommend using Alter in Modern. You just kill a person. So cool stuff like that. Or even, So this card is really sweet. It also just does, I can't even honestly, there's probably a YouTube video from another content creator that people should recommend in the contents of just breaking down all of the different ways the Shayas break magic. This card is sweet. I really like it.
I will use my 10 seconds to basically just say, I think that it's, as an accelerant, things like Wilderness Wreck are better. I think as a big swing and kill you with everything creature, it's pretty cool, pretty thwartable. It costs 5. It doesn't have a cost reducer involved. I think it's great, very cool, very fun card, flavorful, and great for EDH and things like that, but not a card that I'm really paying close attention to, unless I missed a piece of combo that makes this totally dangerous, is my guess. It's totally cool. I think it's great.
So what about Ashaya into Morag, Fury of Akum?
Tell me what Morag does.
Every creature you play gives you an extra combat step.
Yeah, I mean, does that just go infinite?
It doesn't go infinite, because you have to cast creatures, but that's kind of the point, right? There's ways where this... Is there a fairy for 1 that you can return? Isn't there a 1-drop fairy that you play it and then you have to return a creature to your hand, or does it cost 2?
Yeah.
There's a 1-drop, right?
Fairy Miscreant.
Can it return itself?
Or not Miscreant, sorry. It's a Fairy Imposter. It's another creature only.
Oh, another creature. Okay. So it just does weird, dumb things. I think you're going to be surprised by the power level of this card. Ancient Green Warden, 4 green, elemental reach. You may play lands from your graveyard. If a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. It's a 5/7. It's just a really, really big Crucible of Worlds that also doubles every land trigger that enters. I believe this there's something sweet people were pointing out that this does. I mean, obviously Mystic Sanctuary is an insane thing that this does, right? You play Mystic Sanctuary, you get 2 spells on top of your deck that you can grab, but there's other cool things. It's really powerful. Obviously Commander adjacent.
It's a 6 mana 5/7, so if you can get a 6 mana creature into play and have some ability to use that to win, that's great. It's not as powerful as Primeval Titan, which is the barometer for a green creature that costs 6 and does something incredible. But it's really good, and I think if you untap with it, there's a high likelihood you'll win. So it feels very similar to what I was just saying. Really good, not self-contained, cheap, and efficient, but a giant blunt force trauma object that'll win the game.
I think people are talking about it in Amulet decks as a one-of, because you can tutor for it with the Pact, and you can use it to double up bounce land triggers, or double up Field of the Dead, or Valakut triggers. Valakut triggers twice with this in play, right? So you you don't need the full amount of lands. Field of the Dead is even better, right? That trigger is so much quicker. I think that's where people are really thinking of broken things. And then obviously those in Commander are very powerful, and this just makes them bonkers. Let's Reclaim the Wastes. 1 green, sorcery, kicker 3. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. If this spell was kicked, search your library for 2 basic land cards instead of 1. This reminds me a lot of Tithe, in the sense that it's a 1 mana card that gets you a land, but it can get you 2 if you need 2 lands late game. It fixes your mana. So it kind of is a 4 mana draw card, but they are lands. I think it's relatively weak. What are your thoughts?
It sounds like a card that so it's 1 green. You get to search for a basic, put it into play or into your hand.
Into hand.
So for 4, you get 2 basics into hand. Like kind of in the same way that I would have said like Traverse the Ulvenwald was like on the front side of that card is totally fine. It's totally fine. If you search for a land for 1 green, the opportunity cost to play this card is relatively low. I think that most of the time when you play this for 4 to get 2 lands, you won't actually need 2 lands very much in the formats that cares about it.
Mm-hmm.
So in standard, I could see this being totally relevant in a dedicated landfall deck, but that's about the extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in like a secondary format like a Historic or a Pioneer, this is just the best option in like decks where Uro is still legal. But I think aside from that, it's outclassed by so many cards in Magic's history. But I like the front side. 1 green search for land is like a good thing to do a lot. So about that.
Next card, Roiling Regrowth. 2 and a green instant. Sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. For those, it's an instant is the key thing. So those who remember Harrow, this is a fixed Harrow. So what this doesn't do is I think 2 things. Harrow, as part of the cost, you had to sacrifice a land. So if it got countered, it was real feel bads. This resolution is sacrificing a land, so you don't have to worry about the counter issue. But on the downside, the lands enter the battlefield tapped, where with Harrow, you could use it, and then the 2 lands would come into play untapped, so you can use them immediately. Knowing what standard looks like today, I'm really glad this isn't Harrow. I don't want to imagine a world where you can cast this with an Omnath in play and have 2 mana untapped to do something else with. But I think this card's very powerful, right? Like I think Harrow has always been really good, and in some ways there are formats that Harrow is not available, that this is like a more powerful option there anyways, because the formats are smaller.
It's a smart reprint. It's the correct kind of functional reprint that is not the same, but plays with today's modern Magic more. I think in general, when it's like sacrifice a land or like destroy a land and it comes in untapped, in general, I think that's a mistake. I don't think it usually adds to better Magic. Sometimes, but most of the time it's broken. So I'm glad it's not. I think it's better that way.
Scale the Heights, 2 green sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter up to 1 target creature. You gain 2 life. You may play an additional land this turn. Draw a card. So this has parts of Uro attached to it, right? It has gain 2 life versus gain 3 life. You get to put an additional land into play, which Uro lets you do, and you draw a card, which Uro lets you do. You don't draw an Uro into your graveyard, and you don't, instead of that, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. But this also means you have to have a creature in control in play to be able to play this card. Uro's now banned in standard, and hopefully it gets banned in other places as time moves forward. Does this do some of that? Is this maybe the worst version of this play an extra land that we've gotten in a while, or is this playable to you? Because it does kind of have that stabilization effect.
So if they kill your creature in response, the whole spell fizzles, correct? The only one target?
Yes, I agree. There's only one target.
This card's totally fair and like really fun design. It's swingy as all hell. But if you resolve this against me, I'm like, nothing you just did was that intense. Like nothing. There's nothing. You don't end up with a giant threat in your graveyard that I have to answer next. You just like played a spell that cycled and like made your creature 1 bigger. So if this is a card you're playing in your ramp strategy, it's good, but I'm worried about the thing you're doing next. Mm-hmm. And that isn't Uro, because you didn't get one. So I think this card is awesome and totally fun. Great design.
Swarm Shambler, 1 green, 0/0. Swarm Shambler enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. You may pay 1 and tap it. Put a +1/+1 counter on Swarm Shambler. So Fungus Beast gets bigger slowly. There's actually a weirdly large amount of cool +1/+1 counter creatures out there right now. And it being a 1-drop to play in that space, I think is really, really powerful and important. We talked about some last week, and I think are even working on maybe a deck to play in this space.
Yeah, I can speak on this card, I think, pretty quickly. So the Servant of the Scale is like the other green 1-drop I can think of that does this, but you have obviously all the artifacts that have a similar kind of thing. There's a ton now. And the idea of a 1 mana 1/1 that has a counter on it, that means that anytime you have something that doubles counters, that's bigger. The idea that it has a counter, so like with an Una's Blackguard or like one of the Merfolk, that when a creature with a counter on it deals damage, something happens. That's great. The inevitability of this card getting bigger every turn. I have a deck in Historic I brewed with this already. It's not great, but it is pretty interesting. The fact that it's a 1/1 that like when you can't get through, just gets bigger every turn for 1 mana. It's pretty strong, honestly, and for proliferate and stuff. So it's a very cool card. It's one of the better versions of an effect like this that I've seen, but it's definitely not overpowered. So yeah, that's what I'd say about it.
Okay. Yeah, I think one drop that like in some ways it's going to act like what's the one drop green infect creature? Glistener Elf was for infect in standard, right? Where like there's enough synergy, but it needed something to play on turn 1. Otherwise, it didn't really work because you needed other cards that benefited on having +1/+1 counters. This, I think, has that same effect, right? It's like a good one drop moving forward for those types of strategies, and we'll see if those type of strategies pan out. Now that is it for us and green. Now, one thing I do want to say, everyone, if you were wondering, what about the flip cards that we didn't talk about, or what about the landfall cards? We did full episodes on landfall and flip cards 2 weeks ago and the week before that. So definitely go check those out. We talk about every one of the cards that you think we may have missed, unless there's a party and/or kicker spell that we haven't talked about. But I'm going to move on to gold cards. In the land of gold cards, the very first one is Akiri Fearless Voyager. One red white. Legendary creature, core warrior, rare, 3/3. Whenever you attack a player with one or more equipped creatures, draw a card. You may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is the return of the character from, I think it was Commander... I want to say 2017, maybe 2018, which is the one with the partner commanders. The one of the two red-white partners was Akiri. This is a new return.
Line Slinger. Akiri. I think Akiri Line Slinger was the name of the card. The 2-mana 0/3 that got plussed up for all your artifacts.
Yeah, it had what's it called? It was cranial plating, right? Not cranial plating. Yeah, cranial plate. It's cranial plating on a creature.
Attached to it, yeah.
And this card's really cool. One, it's like a cool red-white draw card effect, right? Like It obviously is based on equipment strategies, which have their own spot within this side, but like there's enough like powerful equipment that you can just maybe get away with this letting you draw cards off of them. Plus, it has a protection effect that uses those equipments. So I think there's actually like a cool way to take advantage of in those color combos in Commander that wasn't really available. That isn't really equipment themed, but uses equipment more as protection spells and card draw engines, almost like a Cheerios effect. As far as other formats, I think this is obviously more of a plant for that. She also, spoilers, RIP, dies in the trailer for this set, so that's also sad.
Oh,
one
that's sad.
Small tier. Yeah, thoughts? Anything else? We can move on.
I think it's a cool card. I think like I like it that it costs 3 and you get some advantage for playing this after you've already like played your one drop and equipped it or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think the unattached thing is pretty interesting in terms of like often when you have a creature equipped with an equipment, your opponent's best strategy is like I attack your thing that you spent all this mana to equip, I kill, and now you're like your tempo is way off. So I think the unattached indestructible clause makes this sort of like have a sense of inevitability, but if it costs 2, I'd be worried about it. It costs 3, so it's just like a totally good thing you can be doing that's not pushed. It's just a fun thing. And I think Standard doesn't have the best equipment, so it's right in that range for me. I like it, though.
Cleric of Life's Bond. White, black, vampire cleric. Whenever another cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Cleric of the Life Bond. Cleric Lord.
This card's sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this card is a Cleric Lord that is doing the Ajani's Pridemate thing. Not totally, but like it grows every turn you gain life. And in like the Soul Warden type of deck, this is just a really good card. When white black already wants to kind of gain drain, and those Soul Sisters cards you're going to play are going to do that. This is like one of those lords that's like a little unfairly costed for what it's doing. In the right strategy, this card is a must kill. It's like very good.
Also, it's cool. Like it is a vampire, so like even in vampire strategies, this offers like there's enough vampire and clerics at the same time that you'll get some life gain triggers off of that. But then vampires play so much in life gain space as is that like this just as a vampire that can become in 8/8 in 4 in 5 turns is something that is maybe worth considering. And it's also the first time each turn, so if you can gain life on their turn and your turn, it's 2 per turn.
It's a 2-mana 2/2, correct?
Correct.
So like turn 1 Soul Warden or Soul's Attendant or any of those cards, Essence Warden, it's a 2-mana 3/3 already. Like the turn you play it, just like with your standard 1-drop that in Modern has 12 copies, and then the fact that it just goes like I think 12 of those and 8 of Johnny's Pride Mates with this card already, even without playing Tribal, is like pretty savage.
Right,
it's like really good.
And the fact that you can play that, like turn 1 Soul Warden, turn 2 this, their turn if they play a creature, this is now a 4/4. On your turn, if you play a creature, it's now a 5/5. And you don't even need a Cleric, right? And then now you have a 2-mana 5/5 you're swinging with on turn 3 is like.
Plus you have Anointed Priest as well. So in white, green, black, if you want to just play, you have 12 of each. You have 24 creatures, 1-drops and 2-drops in white, green, black that are all so synergistic with any of the white or black or white black spells that resurrect 1s and 2-drops. Like just play Sarah's Sarah Ascendant, like you're done and done. Your deck is like built. That's the deck. Like it's pretty good.
Grakmaw Skyclave Ravager, 1 green black 0/0 Hydra Horror. Grakmaw Skyclave Ravager enters the battlefield with 3+1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, put a +1/+1 counter on Grakmaw. When Grakmaw dies, create an XX black and green Hydra creature token where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Grakmaw. I do think this is on the top end of best green black counters Magic. Commanders, like playing in that what's it called, Constrictor space, right, where it allows itself to be this kind of engine for it and use for it versus some other options that I think I've liked less. Other than that, it's a Hydra Horror. It looks like 3 Triceratopses are its head. It's got Triceratops heads.
I think it's a less artifact dependent card that falls into the hardened scale space. It's less combo-y. Those decks are like pretty artifact heavy and pretty combo-y. This with like Winding Constrictor and any of the like Una's Blackguard type of 1 and 2 drops that just have counters on them. Cards makes this just a really strong sort of what's the white green card from Gatecrash that everyone, the 2-drop 2-mana 2/2. You make a token when it dies or when they play a spell on your turn. It's called Voice of Resurgence. It's kind of like it's not the same because it's not a 2-drop, but it has that same flavor as a Voice of Resurgence where like play this in the correct deck and like you have a real hard time getting around it. Because if this dies, it's probably going to come back as like a 4/4 or a 5/5. Yeah, and that's hard to deal with.
It's nice also that there's just like board wipe resistance, right? Those strategies can often be like, I have a bunch of creatures in play that get really big. Oh no, Wrath of God, I lose. This is like, oh no, Wrath of God, I have a 12/12. So I think that's pretty sweet as well. Next card is Kaza Royal Chaser, blue-red, legendary creature, human wizard, 1/2, flying haste. The next instant or sorcery spell, you can tap them to have the effect, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability resolves. And I think they are riding a dope, weird, like sky skateboard / broom, all about it. This has to be one of your more. I'm surprised you haven't just already built a commander deck around this card at this point.
I mean, it's pretty dope, right? Like the fact that it has haste is very significant. It's X less where it's the number of wizards you control means that you got to kind of assume that on turn 3 when you cast this, you're going to be casting a 3-drop for 2 or a 2-drop for 1 kind of a thing. And I think it's cool. It's just that like, so a 2-mana 1/2 that you tap to make it cost X less. How different is this from actually just like Electromancer that you don't tap?
Well, it's a legendary creature, so you can play it in your command zone. In constructed,
purely from a commander deck perspective, like all your spells are cheaper and it costs 2. But like Baral can do that. I guess this is blue-red, so yeah, I guess that's like where you get the.
Yeah, it's blue-red, so you get more cards than Baral gets. It is also in some of the Brawl, one of the powerful thing about commanders that are 2 mana is that you just can keep getting them, right? Like the more you can, even if they answer this the first time, it's only 4 mana the second time and 6 mana the third time versus like most commanders, which like you get 2 casts out of them at best, maybe a third. This you can get up to like 5 casts because it's only going to be like
it's like how Sig is. Like I love cheap commanders. I'm like a pretty big proponent of cheap commanders. I think like they make the game a lot more like real Magic as opposed to like my whole thing is built around the idea that I'll get this 4 or 5 drop once and then like again the next turn. And the only way that'll happen is if I'm not doing powerful things. So people like let me live. Whereas like you can just be aggressive anyway with a 2-drop commander, probably.
Right. And I think like even if you just looked at her as like a tap, make 1 card, cost 1 less. Right? Like not even the wizard tribal thing, just like, yeah, it has like a medium electromancer effect, I think is powerful. Also, just a flying haste 1/2 for 2 mana is like a pretty efficient body. And that's I think the difference, right? Is like it has evasion, it has haste, those are things electromancer doesn't have. And the ability to take advantage of those, I think in this is going to be a lot sweeter. And it can stack. If you have any other wizard tribal, it goes from every spell costs 1 less to being able to cast a 5-drop for 2 mana, right? Like that's not that hard to imagine pulling off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, yeah, you mentioned like Electromancer, like it's pretty bonkers there. Like in Baral, any of those cards seems good.
Maybe I'll build around
this. This seems like really good.
Imagine like Snapcaster Maging a Mystic Confluence with this in play, Snapcaster Mage for like 3 mana.
Yeah, dope.
Moss Pit Skeleton, black-green plant skeleton, 2/2, kicker 3. If Moss Pit Skeleton was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, so it's a 5 mana 5/5 or a 2 mana 2/2. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, if Moss Pit Skeleton was in your graveyard, you may put it on top of your library. Something I really like about this card is it's a kicker spell that is like we talked about this a little bit last week with the Shade, the Bloodghast one. It has a similar feel to it. It doesn't draw you a card by coming back into play, but it does return go to your top of your deck. It can block though, so it's like much more of a wall you can put in front of people. And the fact that like it's on curve as a 2-drop, a 2 mana 2/2, or it's on curve as a 5-drop, a 5 mana 5/5, that like then will buy back the other ones. What's cool, if you have 2 of them, they loop each other, right? That's something I really like as well. So you can kind of always have a blocker and you can kind of do that like Abyss situation. And it plays in the +1/+1 counter space that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think medium powered card. I don't think it's like particularly notable, but I liked it. I also think the art's cool. I like it.
Yep. Marasa Root Grazer, green, white, beast, vigilance, you 2/3, so 2 mana 2/3. You may tap it to put a basic land card from your hand onto the battlefield, or you may tap it to return target basic land card you control to its owner's hand. Definitely meant to be a landfall assistant. The fact that it lets you put lands into from your hand into play is actually pretty cool in a different way. For a body that's relatively powerful and has vigilance, so you can attack with your 2/3 for 2 and then put a land into play, or return a land to your hand if you want to give something landfall.
I think what you said is totally correct. I don't know if that a green white is necessarily where you want to be in a dedicated landfall deck. I feel like it's probably red white for the sake of aggressive creatures, but if it's green for like Lotus Cobra, like there's a lot of mana. Like there's definitely a turn 2 this card, turn 3 Lotus Cobra, play land that's a fetch land, put land into play that's a fetch land, like activate both of them, get like 5 mana additional on turn 3. That's pretty bonkers.
Yeah, I think
like you can play one, get one.
I think like
tap it.
For a standard environment, like Omnath is obviously now the thing people are being judged against, and this isn't even close to seeing play there. I think in like a Highlander environment or Brawl, this is a key piece to some of those decks, especially if you want to be more in the green-white side, which the legendary green-white creature does kind of play in that landfall, like lands in your hand matter space at least. So I think that's pretty cool. Omnath, Locus of Creation, we talked about a few weeks ago. In the meantime, ban this card in standard. It's bonkers, and I think this is has a very high chance to be problematic in other formats. Honestly, Wizards, stop printing 4-drops that become free. Like Omnath being a 4-drop that replaces itself in mana if you play enough lands. While Wilderness Reclamation was problematic. The red enchantment that did the same thing. 4-drops that make themselves free is a mistake. Stop it. Yeah. Any thoughts on Omnath, since I think you missed the episode where we really talked about it?
No, I mean, you and I talked about it a little bit the other night. Like, I agree. I think that the haymaker sort of swing of getting like an additional 4 to 5 power thing is too good and makes Magic like a lot less fun. It's hard to recover from one person like getting a free 4 to 5 drop. It's like if it happens twice, the game's pretty much over. But the power of 4 and 5 drops now in Magic are such that like if you play already a really good card and then out of it you get like another really good card, now I have to answer 2 things. And like I was doing my thing. My strategy was probably constructed to like take advantage of my own deck, not answer yours. It's probably not as good as that, right? Unless I just happen to have exactly the right answer, like I'll just get steamrolled, which is never fun because it feels like the power you're getting for that mana is just too high.
Yep.
They put 6 and 7 power effect now into 4 and 5, which is like why getting a free 4 to 5 is like bonkers good.
Next card is Aura Skyclave Hierophant, 2 white black, legendary creature core cleric, lifelink 3/3. When Aura Skyclave Hierophant or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield. Michael famously played this on our stream on Monday, so check that video out if you want to see it as a commander. Clerics seemed really strong. I think he needs a little, maybe he mentioned needing more ways to self-mill himself. You helped him there with your mill deck, so he didn't need that help on the stream. But this card's really sweet. I really like it. It's a cool card. I'm excited for more cleric tribal. Yeah.
Is there feels like there must be some sort of infinite loop that exists with this and 3 mana card that can like sacrifice to resurrect kind of a thing. I guess it has to be equal or lesser, but like it does feel like this is set up to result in an eventual infinite loop that hasn't maybe been printed yet.
Basically what you need is yeah, who knows? Okay, yeah, basically you need if you get a creature that's a true drop or less, or a smaller creature that can bring back a bigger creature that also sacrifices itself, and both of them are clerics, you can go infinite and get extra features from that, right? So that could be cool one day. It's a cool card though. Next card, I think this is one you are extremely hyped about, which is Soaring Thought Thief. Blue, black, 1/3 human rogue, flash flying. As long as your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0. Whenever 1 or more rogues you control attack, each opponent mills 2 cards.
This card is so good. So I'm about probably tonight after the episode, I'm a few games away from Mythic in Historic, and it's on the back of this blue-black Rogues deck that was already good last season, but now with this card, I replaced all of the Brineborn Cutthroats with this card, and it's just way better. Like this with the 1-drop in black, the Thieves Guild Enforcer, the 2 of those together with like brown in the lock is just very, very powerful. This being a 2 mana 1/3 with flash already is like pretty good. I mean, like 2 mana 1/3 with flash is almost playable anyway. And the fact that it's a relevant creature type and mills them and like +1/+0 to your rogues. So 2 of these, which happens pretty often, you've got like +2/+0 to all your rogues. There's also the land now that is a rogue that you can play as a clone of your own creature, which I'm playing 1 of in the deck, so why wouldn't you? Because like cloning this pre-combat, just +2/+0 to everything. It's really good. It's like very pushed for what it is.
Often it's also a flash flying 2/3 for 2, right? Like it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Even if you play this as a 1/3 on turn 2 at the end of their turn, on your turn 3, it shouldn't be that hard to get that many cards into their graveyard to get that extra damage in. And then the next turn it's not hard at all because this milled them twice for 4 mana, 4 cards in between. So yeah, I think this card's insane. There are rumors that in new standard now that Uro is banned, which we haven't even touched upon, but Uro is banned. Rogues is actually one of the decks that does beat up on the Omnath decks pretty hard in standard. So there's even that as an option as well. And this card's a feeture of all that.
I would just say really quickly that the card Curious Obsession, which is like one of my favorite cards, and I'm like an enormous fan of. I think that card's amazing. Flat flying creatures for 2 mana in like blue-black that you can like flash in end of turn and play that on the next turn are insane. And Fairy Vandal, which is another one of my favorites, is especially good because it flashes in as a 1/2 and then domes them and becomes a 3/4 by the time your combat step on turn 3 is over, which like with Spell Pierce open, they just basically lose unless like they have exactly the right answer. It's like game over pretty fast.
Next card, Spoils of Adventure, 4 white, blue, instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. You gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. It's an instant. So what's interesting to me is, like, if you have a wizard in play, this is a 5 mana Sphinx's Revelation. without really being like it's just Sphinx's Revelation on 5, right? Like it's just you draw 3 cards, you pay 5 mana, you gain 3 life. It doesn't have the scale up mode, but what it does has if you like accidentally just have a wizard and cleric in play, which in blue white actually isn't probably that hard to pull off. It's now a 4 mana draw 3 cards, gain 3 life, and the fact that it's an instant I think is also really impressive. I think this is actually one of the better, similar to how we were talking about the Reanimator black. One that like just adjacently is extremely powerful because for 4 mana you could reanimate 2 things accidentally, or for 5 mana you get like double reanimation. This to me is also similar, where just like the standard effect, I've played in standard environments 6 mana to draw 4 cards at instant speed, and there are a lot of times where drawing 3 cards and getting 3 life would be better than that effect, and this gets cheaper if I'm playing with wizards, which are just a thing that you like have magic.
I feel like when you were talking about like a second ago, cost reducers, the idea of a Jeskai deck that's playing like 4 Baral, 4 Electromancer, and discard with counterspells is pretty nuts. Because already just turn 2, like you play this, then the next turn, it costs 6 naturally, right? So you won't be able to cast it on turn 3 unless you had a 1-drop that was in the correct tribe, which you might, because that's what the deck is doing. But if you do, you go 1-drop, 2-drop to this card, draw 3, gain 3, end of turn on turn 3. That seems nuts. That seems pretty unfair. Like, I'm really about that. That seems like a really fun thing to do. Yep.
I think people have because party is like something people are resistant on, they didn't like read that this card just is Sphinx's Revelation attacked if you have 1 creature in play.
Yep.
And that creature type, like cleric and wizard both are just like on creatures randomly. Like you're gonna like, when I like looked up clerics, like, oh, I didn't realize that X was a cleric, and it's just because it is, and therefore you can take advantage of it. Yep, sweet. Next card. Verol's the Split Current. X blue green, legendary creature Serpent. Verol is the Split Current, enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each mana spent to cast it. Whenever you cast a kick spell, you may remove 2 +1/+1 counters from Verol's. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for that copy. So this is the card that Marshall played with on Monday's stream. Definitely check his deck out. There's also a deck list on that stream for you to look, and Marshall may even put in the description of this episode, as well as the rest of ours, or I might remember to do it. And this card is sweet. It's a big snaky boy that makes kicker spells go crazy. Marshall was definitely did some sweet things on the other day. Like, it's a really cool Kickers Matter card. I think it's the best Kickers Matter commander probably out there. Better than the red-green one from Dominaria that was like an uncommon. And just does like really cool things.
It's way better. Yeah, it's like obviously scalably a creature that it has as much power as the mana you pay for it, and it flies is way better than the use to print. So the idea that this is like a 3 mana 3/3 that just can copy a spell is excellent. Mm-hmm. Like, very good.
Something that's cool about it too is like I think it's one of the first times they've ever allowed a spell to just copy any permanent. Like if it copies a permanent, you get a token, which is really cool. So you either get like the copy the spell or token. I think that's really sweet. Yasharin, Implacable Earth, 2 green-white legendary creature elemental boar. When Yasharin enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. It is a 4/4.
One of my favorite cards in the whole set. I think this card is super cool from like a just like fun and functional design perspective, which is like as a new player, you're like, I cast this card, it will always feel good. Even though like what I'm doing in my deck and like what I've designed and synergies maybe are not that complex, the idea that a 4 mana 4/4 that has like some hate bear abilities that draws 2 cards is excellent. It's a very, very, very good card.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about this as being like for a while, the black-white legend that does 3, what's his face, has been a good hate bears commander in CDH. There's like real conversations that a green-white hate bears deck is possible with this, because it's just like draws you 2 cards, so you're gonna hit your land drops. You can use those lands for whatever you need them to, and then like players can't gain life. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities is like
pretty powerful,
pretty strong.
Agreed.
Like the fact that people can't pay, like you can't fetch with this in play, right? I'm not crazy. Because you can't pay life.
You can't pay life.
Yeah, you can't fetch. Like this shuts down fetch lands. That's modern playable, right? Like I can imagine a world where this like slides right into that Siege Rhino spot. It doesn't stabilize the same way that Siege Rhino does, but it does just like shut your opponent's lands down forever, and like gets rid of other effects that are really powerful. Yeah, I'm very impressed.
Also with Iola's Influence, if you have Iola's Influence in your deck and you're playing like a Lands Matters deck, you like play that on turn 3, pass, play this on turn 4, draw your 2 cards, and then like you can discard those 2 cards to make a 2/2 end of turn, which
You can just both make 2 2/2s, right? You can make a 4/4. You can make some 2/2.
Is it discard 1 land or is it discard 2 lands?
Iola's Influence is discard 1 land. It's Seismic Assault for 1, but for bears.
Oh, so on turn 3 you pass, you take the damage, then you play this card, and then it's like get 2 lands, discard 2 lands, make 4 more power. That seems great.
Yep. Zagras, Thief of Heartbeats, 4 red black, legendary creature, vampire rogue, 4/4. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Flying Death Touch haste. Other creatures you control have Death Touch. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. First off, I think that second ability should just be how Death Touch reads. I think Death Touch should just be given destroy planeswalker as errata, and just like let that be a thing. Makes Death Touch creatures way better and planeswalkers worse, but I think that was something that I wish was true for all of War of the Sparks time and standard. Otherwise, this is a Death Touch in Red Black Lord. If you can, like, cool thing you with always the Death Touch is giving it to first strikers, and giving it to trample creatures is always like really dumb, because like the way that both of those work with Death Touch is like very hard to beat. Otherwise, I think it's just fine. I think like there's other red black commanders I'm more excited by, but like Death Touch Tribal is a thing that could be interesting. Xerath, or do you have any comments on this?
No, I think it's totally powerful. I think like the cost reducer ability is like cool, right? Like it flies, it has haste, it does a lot of good things really, really well. It's a vampire and a rogue, which is also very, very cool. But again, like I think the whole concept of party is that party is designed to be like inherently fair. So nothing about it worries me. So then I look at the rest of this card and totally fine. Yeah, I think, not impressive, but fun.
I think like the one other place I thought about it in Commander as a commander is in like Tim decks, right? Things that like tap to do 1 damage, because this gives them Death Touch, and that's really good. The problem I have with that is it's something that like I've run into even with Kess Crimes, which is like a threaten effect based deck. Like you're using stuff like that steals creatures until end of turn, is eventually you just kill all of your opponent's creatures. If your deck is so good at murdering creatures, they just won't have them, but you'll lose to like the person playing the artifact deck or the enchantment deck, or just like playing the combo deck that doesn't care about creatures. Right. Not everything is about creatures. You're just going to make that one player who is doing something about creatures miserable and hate you, and then the other player is going to kill you because you actually don't do anything. Xerath Sand the Trickster, 3 blue black Merfolk Rogue, 4/4 flash, 2 blue black. Return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand. Put Xerath Sand the Trickster from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Whenever Xerath Sand deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. This card's really cool. It like is interesting that it has an ability for constructed not commander play, but then also a good ability for like commander, and it is a legendary creature. Have you thought of just like playing this as like a one of, because you might just get someone with a 4 mana flash?
I think it's like kind of in the same vein as the what's it called, that like 4 mana ninjutsu card from Modern Horizons. It feels kind of similar and like is also very cool. And if you want to like with a great ability for great effect tap out, or basically tap out at that point to try to get a haymaker, it's very cool. It's probably not as good as the other one because you have to have like some other things working in your favor. You have to like mild them or like thought seize them or something ahead of time, but I like this card. I think this card is totally cool.
Yep. That is it for gold cards. We have artifacts and lands left. Let's barrel through this. I think I am running out of steam to be able to do the secret layer conversation, so we'll see what happens. But let's knock this out.
You got your act together, man.
Okay. We're at an hour and 50 minutes so far. Forsaken Monument, 5 mana legendary artifact. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever you tap a permanent for colorless, add an additional colorless. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. It's like one of the few references to the Eldrazi in the entire set, which is kind of crazy. They like went real hard on ignoring that ever happened. really good in every like Eldrazi themed colorless deck in Commander. Like this is just an auto include. I guess I think flavorfully, I think this is Eldrazi Monument. I think this is the card Eldrazi Monument, but after everything that's happened since then. And other than that, I think it's just fine. I don't know where it's like really cool. I like love the art on this card, but otherwise
There's like a bunch of cards that have been printed that make this really good because it's a colorless card. So you can play this alongside like a ton of like the new land we're going to talk about in a second that you can put 2 counters on, becomes a creature behind Mutavault, behind Blast Zone, behind like so many good colorless lands with all of your Mind Stones and all of your ramp cards in the world. And like it just becomes very good. I've played against this in Historic a lot already, and it's deceptively powerful. It's really good with Karn, obviously, in your sideboard. It's a good thing to get a 1-of with Karn. Like there's just a lot. You can the doubling mana accelerates into huge threats like Ugin and Eldrazi really easily. It's pretty powerful. I'm glad it costs 5. It doesn't cost like 4. And it has a slightly reduced effect. If it costs 6, I think it would still be playable, but not quite as good. 5's pretty pushed though. So it's pretty good.
So because Karn can get this out of your sideboard, do you think this is a auto include in modern Tron decks, or maybe or like a consideration for include?
I think the fact that you gain the life and it doubles your mana just means that the turn after you play it, unless you like are totally shut out, you're gonna probably like play 2 spells and gain 4 life is probably what'll happen. And it does feel like because of Karn, it's an auto include as a 1-of in the sideboard. It's hard to not want to cast this. Like, I guess you cast Karn, you play your 5th land, you play this. So it's not the turn after Karn, but the turn after you play this, even if you don't play a 6th land, you'll have 10 mana. So like more than likely, yeah, you're gonna cast like a expedition map, gain 4 life.
Well, and
search for land, play land.
And in Tron, you like turn 4 Karn, right? Or like turn 3 Karn, 3 drop, turn 4 this into a... So this is turn 4. You have 13, 14, 15, 16 mana. You can tap 2 of them to play this. You have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
No.
8, 9, 10
you have to cast. You have to cast this before your mana's doubled. So let's say you play another.
Sorry.
Let's say you play another tower. So now you have 8 mana on turn 4. You cast this for 5, and then you have 6 mana available to you after that.
No. If you play another tower on turn 4, you have 10. You have because you have 7. You have 10 mana.
And so you play with this for 5. Oh yeah. And then you have 10.
Then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 mana. So you can play this and then Karn, big Karn, the same turn, right? Which is like really good, and you gain 2 life. Or you play a Wormcoil Engine and it's an 8/8, and if it dies, it creates 2 5/5s. I think that's pretty sweet. I don't hate that. Like against some matchups, so it's like unbeatable, and then in other ones, you get the different card out of your sideboard. Okay, Lithoform Angel, blah blah blah. Lithoform Engine, 4 mana, legendary artifact. This is the thing. This is what the whole set is about. Nahiri found it. Legendary artifact, 2 mana, tap it, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. 3 mana, tap it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. 4 mana, tap it. Copy target permanent spell you control. The copy becomes a token. I believe this is the most pre-ordered card in the entire set. This is the card
that's really powerful.
Like every commander player on the planet, like it in some ways is like there's an argument that this should be an auto included every commander deck ever printed.
It does a lot. It has a lot of text. I've played with this card a few times. I've played against it a few times. I had it in like a sealed deck, I think, when I was playing limited. It's really good. It plays in that same space we were just talking about. It definitely has a lot of application. I play this in my 5-color artifact Planeswalker deck in our Arena Gauntlet series, and it's really good. It comes down and just makes everything better. I mean, I think I agree with you. This feels like one of those cards that's going to be ubiquitous in a like not powerful and constructed necessarily kind of a way, but in a commander, this card is fun and should be included all the time kind of way. You think there's any chance this gets banned?
I think there's potential. Like it feels really comparable to What's the other artifact that's been banned? The one where you ever cast a spell, untap every permanent you have.
And the engine.
Yeah, Paradox Engine. So it feels really like Paradox Engine-y to me, and it could become too ubiquitous. It does go like infinite in a few different ways that probably is problematic. The fact that it's colorless, I think, was a mistake. I think that's like, honestly, I think powerful mythic artifacts shouldn't be colorless like this. This should be like, honestly, it should have been 5 color if I was to be a person of choosing how things go. But here we are. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty terrifying. Next card is Myriad Construct, 4 mana, 4/4, kicker 3. If it was kicked, it enters with +1/+1 counter on it for each non-basic land your opponent controls. So cool little non-basic land hate. When it becomes the target of spell, sacrifice it and create a number of 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens equal to its power. So has a really cool anti-removal technology, right? Like you make this big 4/4 generally, or you make something crazy for 7 mana, upwards of a 10/10. If you're at 7 mana, I guess it could be a 12/12, right? 7 if they have 7 non-basics.
It's a commander, and you're playing this for 7 mana, like, which by the way is the same slot as playing like a Psych Rift. So like, the payoff for 7 mana in commander is pretty high. But like, let's just say you played this for 7, probably it's going to come down and be at least a 12/12. I would say realistically in a 4-person game, once you have 7 lands in play, this is probably going to be closer to a 20/20. I think, unless people are playing a lot of basic lands.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking actually more in Tron. I think in Commander, this is just fine. It's just like a big creature that, yes, right? Like it can like combo to create like a ton of tokens for not too much work. And in Brawl and in Historic Commander, different conversation. But I was thinking more, like in either Historic,
in Modern,
Ramdex, or in Modern, where like, once again, this is in your sideboard, you can pull it out. It's a big thing for not that expensive. It's not bad at 4 mana, right? Like it scales up really well. So if they get you on your Tron lands, this is something you can still play and is like still a threat they have to deal with. And whenever they try and kill it, you get an army of 1/1s that is also pretty good at protecting you and getting in damage if they need to in a trampoline kind of way. So that was more my thought.
It's target of a spell, right? So like they can't path. So it has to be, they have to like Innocent Blood you, or like an effect like Innocent Blood. Obviously in Modern you can't, or you can't play Innocent Blood in Modern, right? Or did that get printed in?
I don't think you have to use it like an edict
in
effect.
Historic now. So.
Like Fleshbag Marauder kills it, right? Like you need an edict effect, and then or like Liliana of the Veil, the most played edict effect in Modern, or you need a like a board wipe, like it's Supreme Verdict kills it, no problem. But you also can target it with yours, right? So you can if you tried targeting it with your own effect or spell, it sacrifices it, or it's just spell, so not effect. All these equipment are whatever. Skyclave Relic, 3 mana artifact, indestructible. Kicker 3. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 2 token copies. Add 1 mana of any color. So this is kind of like 6 mana Lotus. Gilded Lotus, right? 6 mana Gilded Lotus, but it's indestructible and separated tokens, so you get like extra token copies for things that care about how many artifacts you have, or 3 mana, just any of the generic, 3 mana.
It's like like somewhere in the like Darksteel Ingot sort of range. Card's cool. I think the modality and the functionality of this card is really, really, really fun design space that I'm stoked they went into. I think like for Commander, this is a great card because like there are plenty of players who are just like, I'll just like for 6, I'll like advance my mana and you're not going to attack me because like I didn't really do anything other than just like made a bunch of artifacts to like grow my board. And
I think itself, right? Like it does allow you, like you play it and you now have 3 mana. So the kicker is free. And simply you just need 6 mana to be able to do it. So it's either 3 mana to ramp you to 4 or to 5 on your next turn, or 6 mana that replaces itself immediately with 3 mana. I think this is actually a commander staple. I mean, like Lotus is already, Gilded Lotus is like a commander staple. It's another card that every deck should probably consider playing. What's cool about this one that's different is you can also choose different colors. Something that I get wrecked on with Gilded Lotus a lot is just like, I need a black mana, a red mana, and a blue mana this turn. And you're only going to give me 3 red. Right. So that's pretty cool.
Totally.
And that is artifacts. I don't think I skipped anything that's that exciting. So just some lands. We're running out, and then we're done. First land to talk about is Crawling Barrens. Land Tap for 1 colorless, but 4 mana, put 2+1/+1 counters on Crawling Barrens. Then you may have it become a 0/0 elemental creature until end of turn. It is still a land. Something that's cool about this is you can activate the 4 mana thing multiple times in a single turn. So for 8 mana, you get a 4/4, and then the counters stay on. So in the next turn, you can make it into a 12/12 and start attacking with it. So it does have that cool, like, get bigger over time effect that Raging Ravine has. Like, one of the old tricks with the Raging Ravine late game was also like activating the Raging Ravine twice. So you get both triggers. So when it attacks, it gets +2/+2. So you attack with a 5/5 or something bigger. I think this card's also being slept on. I think this actually is a really good, like, man land.
I agree. I think the other thing about this card that's so powerful is that you can activate it, make it a 2/2, not kill it. You don't have to make it a creature. So you're like, I'll activate my 4 mana land, and you're like, I'll plan to shock it. Oh, wait, actually, they didn't make it a creature. So I can't. So now when they activate it again, they put the counters on before it becomes a creature. And so then it's a 4/4. So like that's really good. It's like a very unique, very, very powerful, resilient way to make the 4 mana investment actually worthwhile.
It's like a great control finisher, right? Because you can just have it in play, keep mana open every turn. If they don't do anything, put mana into this so it becomes bigger. And if they do something, counter it. Right?
Yep.
Like every turn. And then eventually you have this like 4 mana hard to kill 10/10 that you're swinging with every turn. You're good. And then that, my friend, is all of Zendikar Rising. We have
holy smokes! Look
finished our preview of the set. Yeah, I'm super hyped. I'm excited because this set is. I'm really excited now. We built the Cherix deck, right? I built Cherix for our Commander stream, our friendly neighborhood crab Leviathan, and that was really fun. But now I'm excited also because I'm building a Commander deck basically out of this set, right? I claimed Zendikar Rising in this Commander League, and so I get like all these cool cards now I get to play with, and I'm really hyped. I think like some of the stuff in this set is just like really, really, really cool, and I'm excited moving forward. I guess some other notes from like comments that we've gotten. One thing is I think we did in some ways underrate this guy. The Scourge of the Skyclaves. That's the Death Shadow-esque card.
You got yourself a foil, huh? Look at you.
No. It was my. I got like a box topper. Not a box topper. It's like you would get them for being a part of the pre-release event, but because they're not doing them, the store I went to was willing to just give it to you if you spent enough money during release weekend.
Yeah.
So I bought like a box, and I bought some of the Commander sets because I had never bought them. It was the first time I was in a card store since February probably, because I was out of town so much in March.
Which one did you go to? Did you go to Mega
Melrose.
Hero 1 on Melrose?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like
formerly known as Melrose Comics.
Yeah. They're like really close to me. They're, I think, actually my new local game store in the sense that they are the most local game store. I like
that store. I think they do a good job.
Yeah. They were very nice. I called ahead of time. They're like, oh yeah, we have a Cherix coming in. And I bought they had the new Commander set, so I bought all 5 because I didn't get to buy them before. And I bought this, and they also had the unglued, the already built box that comes with the really, really, really cool lands. And
sure, yeah.
Because I wanted to have an Alexander Clamilton deck, partially because it's my name, and now I can have Alexander and Kess, and all they need to do is make like a lure card that's legendary, and then I can have the whole name. If there's a Wily at some point, I'll be wildin'. So yeah, that was cool. It was fun going to a card store, but yeah, I really love this set. I think like obviously people are really down on like how powerful Omnath is, and like how powerful just every set that comes out is in Standard. I'm like a little less off of that this year. Like obviously Omnath plus Oko is like just way too good for Standard out the gate, but I think part of that was Uro's fault, and Uro being gone I think helps. I think Omnath maybe was a mistake and is too powerful. And I think that moving forward it's going to be banned at some point. It just sucks because it's the front of a card. But I think the rest of the set is really sweet. I don't know. Like I'm really hyped on this set. It's really fun. And like playing Limited has been really fun. I'm excited to play like Phylath, the World Sculptor. I might like just make a bunch of Commander decks going forward out of these cool cards.
I agree. I think it's really sweet. I think Omnath is the kind of card design that's like, if you were going to put something that powerful into the set, it should have been easier to make it hard to get 4 colors on turn 4. That should have been harder. Like, that's too powerful to be able to hit on turn 4 for decks, or turn 3, I guess, in some cases. But aside from that, I mean, I think that's totally sweet. I agree.
I think Wizards has also learned a lesson between Omnath and Uro, or at least I hope they have, in the sense that like card draw replacing ramp that gains you life should never all be on the same card ever again.
Yeah, agreed. I hate Uro with all my heart. I haven't played against Omnath that much, but I probably hate that card almost as much.
Right, like it literally has
I like,
three of the worst.
I hate Uro in the top 5 most hated Magic cards of all time. I hate it more than Oko, probably.
You didn't really play much against Oko because it like you were like
but I've like played against Oko in Eternal formats.
Sure,
like it's in all of our Highlander decks. It's in all the Highlander Arena Gauntlet decks we play. Mm-hmm. I think Oko is awful, but Uro is so much more frustrating because like Oko is just a planeswalker. So like any destroy planeswalker spell that I have kills it. Mm-hmm. Like it's just a single card. It makes it great. You made a food token. I'll kill your planeswalker. Enjoy gaining life. Like Uro like exists and it gets you like 3 life and a card, and then now exists in a zone where I have to answer the whole zone, and like that's pretty specific. That's a pretty specific thing you're asking me to do. If I don't, then it's going to be a huge problem, and like it's just not fun. And the fact that it comes down on turn 3 in the first place, but it's not answerable the turn after it comes down by most basic metrics, like I have to have the thing that answers a weird zone, makes the card really pretty miserable for me.
Right. And I guess last question is what do you have a favorite card from this set? Is there a card you're the most excited to get your hands on? Or that you've played with
I think
already?
Probably that flying 1/3 rogue for 2 is like, I think amazing. I really like both of the 2 ones in blue, the one that copies a spell and the one that steals an artifact. They're both excellent. I think some of the lands are really cool. I love the flip lands. I think they're excellent. I like really love the design on those cards. After having played with them a bunch already, I just am like, man, these just feel perfect. They're like, I never am let down by what I have to do with the choice. They don't cost me any life. They don't get worse as the game goes on. They're just like super solid.
Yeah. I think I'm like just really happy with the cool stuff they did with Red this set. Like Red played in so many cool different spaces, like and all over the place. Like Valakut Exploration is really cool. Valakut Awakening is really cool. Like Hellkite Tyrant, right? Or not Hellkite Tyrant. What is it called? Layline Tyrant.
The 4-mana 4.
Yeah. Like I love that. Morog Fury of Akum is really cool. The extra combat steps. Magmatic Channeler we talked about. Even just like the land stuff, right? Where you get to like the Ping Exile card. Cleansing Wildfire is like a really, really sweet card. Like I just like they did all these really cool stuff in Red that I'm really hyped on. I'm really excited by. But yeah, I think like other than the fact that Omnath is this big pain point, I think this is on my list of some of the more favorite sets that's come out. Like there's so many cool power level things that are like interesting that I'm really hyped for. I haven't bought a box in a long time, and I bought a box of this set.
Well, I'm going to be following suit here in the next couple of days. I'll be buying my Commander League box. Yep. So all about it.
Also really hyped on Ballad Get Recovery, just like other cards as I'm looking through this. That's the regrowth on a land.
Regrowth that's also a land. I'm all about it.
Yeah, that card is so sweet. All right, so it doesn't exile itself, right? Like that's also really, really important.
Yeah.
So regardless, that's the end of this episode and the end of our Zendikar Rising set review. Please go, if you didn't listen to the other ones, check those ones out. We had a bunch of hot takes on all those kind of stuff, or not hot takes, but like, strong thoughts. And we're just really hyped about the set. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to check out the Patreon, like the comments, comment below. I already think I mentioned reasons to comment, but make sure to also likes really matter. And commenting really matters for the algorithm. So it like really helps these videos do better. The more you comment, the more you like. And we'd love to hear from you guys, and make sure to follow on Twitter. I'm at Kess Wiley.
You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media. Follow us both on Twitch. You can find him at twitch.tv/Kess Wiley. You can find me at twitch.tv/Ben Bateman Streaming. I am going to hit Mythic tonight on Arena. because I've been playing a sick rogues deck.
Yep. And you stream every Wednesday night, confirmed, right? That's your big Magic night streaming. And then we do on my channel at Kess Wiley, we do the Commander stream every Monday, and then the videos live on YouTube as well. So definitely check all that out. We really like to hang out with you guys. And once again, thank you, Marshall. We know set reviews are a barrel of fun to get through, and we apologize for how long these were, and we don't know what to do because we've added more formats that we talked about before. We could just this card is never going to see play in Modern, never mind. But now it's like, oh wait, right, Commander is like a big part of what content we're making. Cool.